I'll open the regular planning and zoning meeting for Tuesday, April 14th, 2026.
And commissioners, we have already completed the pledge of allegiance, so you won't see that on tonight's agenda. And maybe just to get ahead of the conversation, we have not received any requests to speak this evening on the call of the community, nor have received any one in the audience wishing to speak on non-agenda items.
So we'll move on to the business portion of the meeting, the election of officers.
Commissioners, thank you. Chair Faith was unable to join us this evening, and Vice Chair Ledyard has resigned his position, which is why we have Commissioner Baum now. So you can self-nominate, you can nominate somebody else as far as a chair and a vice chair position for the term. I will note that in Chair Faith's email request this evening that said he will not be able to attend, he has interest in serving as chair once more, but again, it is the six of you who will need to either self-nominate or nominate someone else for the two positions. And just know whoever becomes vice chair is running the rest of the meeting, so no pressure.
Wasn't there something at one point like the advice, like you couldn't chair consecutively?
Commissioner O'Connor, to my knowledge, I cannot imagine that because Susan Charneski would be in deep trouble for.
Since I've been on it, like, we've had this flip flop vice and chair.
Exactly.
Every time.
Alternating.
Okay, I've not been informed of such.
By choice, maybe?
No, that was something that's,
I thought we had to do that.
yeah, something that was.
Okay,
Was,
RPD
we were
was
told
like that.
that we had to.
She was never like that.
no, and neither has design review board. I think chair and vice chair switched in design review board and board of adjustment just to keep things a little bit cleaner as far as just those two bodies, since it was the same 5 individuals. But that would be news to me. Are you, so for those of you who've been around a while on this commission, I believe we re-elected Chair Faith a year ago. And if he had, and I believe it was a re-election, so at minimum, he served the last 2 as chair, unless I'm mistaken.
Pretty
So,
sure it was vice. I don't, obviously I don't care. I just know that that's, since I've been on, that's what's transpired, so.
I don't have the option to call friend this evening. So if we do faux pas, we can redo this again next month. But for now, happy to hear any.
I made a motion to have Mike Faith continue as chair.
Second.
Okay, so that's this isn't a vote yet, just to
Okay.
appreciate that. I appreciate
She's not here, so let's name it through.
Exactly.
That'll teach you to not show up to a meeting. Get stuck in a position you can't get out of.
Is there any other person that wishes to nominate themselves or someone else as chair?
Vicky, you want to take the chair? I'll nominate you for it.
I'll accept if you want. I'd prefer to be vice chair if I need to be something.
I think it sounds great.
So.
Okay, so we have,
Motion and second.
hang on. This is good practice for you next year, depending on how things go. But hang on. Okay, so as of right now, there has been 1 request for chair and 1 request for vice chair. Am I understanding the 6 of you correctly? Okay, so as far as Chair Faith resuming as Chair Faith, let's do a formal motion, if you may. So could you take that?
Both of them, or want me to do one at a time?
One at a time, please.
I move that we elect Faith as our chair.
Okay, now a formal second is,
Isaac.
okay. And then all in favor? Thank you. Now, as far as vice chair, is there a nomination for vice chair?
I nominate Vicky Alvin.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And then all those in favor? Wonderful. Okay.
Can't vote for yourself.
Okay, yes, you can. In this situation, you can.
May I make one more motion?
Beyond the two we've made, okay?
That if we have to, if we do have to
Oh,
switch,
thank you.
that we would.
Thank you. Okay, so yes, we're a little informal in this, but I think the clerk will forgive me. If there is a circumstance where the chair cannot be the chair again, we will have this same conversation in a month.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Vice Chair, if you may continue to run the rest of the meeting, we'll go to item B.
Okay, item B is approval of minutes from the January 13th, 2026 meeting. Is there any discussion on those minutes that were reviewed?
So accurate.
I'll make a motion, we accept as published.
Thank you. And
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Ball, I'm going to ask you to abstain from the vote since you were not present for that.
Same.
Okay.
You don't need to,
Do I need to hit it? I
a
don't-
motion and a second.
Okay, great. Okay.
You may
Next
have,
item.
sorry, you may ask for a vote on the item.
Oh, vote. Let's vote on it. Who approves the minutes? I'll approve. Anyone who opposes approving the minutes?
And then one abstain, correct?
Abstain.
Thank you. So 501. Thank you.
And then Sun Health Comprehensive Sign Program Amendment. Randy, would you like to present?
Thank you, Vice Chair. So this is item 3C, the Sun Health Comprehensive Sign Program Amendment. For those here in January, we just had one as well for, I've just completely blanked on who we saw in January for this comp sign pack program.
All right, that was the.
Yeah, thank you. It was Heritage Partners. Okay. So in this situation, Sun Health has an existing comprehensive sign program that's been in the books since 2005. This is simply an amendment to that for some new pedestal monument signs at the far corners of the property. So these proposed signs would be 40 square feet of signage each. That's 10 per side, and each side has signage as being depicted. The other thing that these would permit is the sign would be up to 17 feet 4 inches and 9 feet 4 inches at base. This is something we don't have on the books. We've never considered a 17-foot sign because we've never had a need to think about a 17-foot sign. The closest thing we would have is like the Fry's with the gas sign and all the tenants as far as scale of this size. Now, this is not design review board, so this is not an opinion or on the matter of what it looks like or that sort of thing. This is a request to basically amend their portfolio of signs to include this pedestal sign, and they are proposing locations adjacent to Palm Valley along Camelback Road, right before you get to Goodyear, and north on Litchfield Road, right before you get to Turning Leaf Church at the far ends of their property. Staff does feel as though those locations are not overbearing by any means. They're on major arterials, major regional routes. So the idea of a 17 4-foot sign when we normally see signs between 4 feet and 6 feet tall isn't out of the ordinary because of their location. Now, all of this was essentially written in the staff report, which was not included in your packet. I apologize for that being in your packet. That was the email I sent late this afternoon, and the staff report that's in front of you for item C. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or clarifications about the intent of this evening. And the applicant is present. Yes.
For the applicant. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Out of curiosity, what is your guys' desire for such a large sign?
So the desire, commissioners, is to mark the corners of our 320-acre development. There's a lot that's going to be happening in the near future with our districts. We're going to be developing our commercial district at the southeast corner of the campus, planning a 25-acre wellness district in the center of Camelback Road, and then another residential district along Camelback, as well as developing out more of a continuum of care life plan community, and then further developments north of the hilltop as part of the campus. With everything that's going on the hilltop, we're trying to bring our branding into the conversation and just say, hey, there's something happening here. Along with putting these corner monuments or pedestals really at the corners of the property. We're bringing forward the entry monument sign, which would be at the hard southwest or southeast corner. And that's covered under the current comprehensive sign plan. So that is being designed and will be there to, mark the entrance. We currently have signage as you come into the community off of what we call Denny South. There's far too many Denny roads in our community, and that will change, but for now, as that comes down, there's signage there. But this is stepping into our branding for the campus, which is Rancho La Loma. So you'll see the branded R to be in the ranch, and then the two L's are La Loma. So that's the brand for the overall campus. Have I answered your question, Commissioner O'Hara?
Thank you.
Any other questions I can answer?
I have a quick one. Why are you making it 17.4 inches instead of 17?
That is a good question. I am not the architect that designed it, but
Well,
that is-
that was a sufficient answer. The architect.
Hmm.
it was an architect.
I'm a remodeling contractor, I understand.
Okay.
But those little nitty details, sometimes they come around the
It
budget,
has to be
sometimes.
proportionate
Yeah.
in someone.
Right.
I'm sorry, Janice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we would, a recommendation from staff would be to approve the proposed amendment to the Sun Health Comprehensive Sign Program file PZ 2618, subject to the additional page within that document provided. Again, all previous pages are and have been approved since 2005. This is a new slip sheet at the end.
We have,
Sorry, I do have a question.
Okay.
What, I mean, I like the city being flexible with these things.
Mhm.
And, it seems, supportive to the developer for these sites. What are things that the city would not, like, what would you not support? What are things that are no-goes? Because I mean, why do we even have these codes in it? Right?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
loaded. question.
Commissioner O'Connor, I'm going to answer your question with a big conversation, but I'd like to remind this commission it's coming. The zoning code, which we adopted, we found one that was pretty close and adopted it when we incorporated in 1987. When we found something on the shelf that was okay enough, we grandfathered over 800 homes within Tierra Verde because the development standards with the home builders and of Litchfield Park properties and our zoning code we found off the shelf didn't marry up. And there's all sorts of grandfathering across all sorts of properties. To that point, the sign code is another one of those examples where what we have in the books doesn't work. In fact, it works so poorly that all new commercial development must go through a CSP because we just don't have any sort of code language to make it function correctly. So CSP permits that. As far as things we wouldn't do, we're not doing billboards, right? We're not doing, LED trucks driving down the streets, any sort of electronic message. Historically, we are opposed to. The only exception to this, I think, is Circle K and Fry's, which have the price of gas. But we would never have any sort of flashing messages. We don't permit balloons or I call feather signs or swooper signs with the big flags that wave back and forth and, along the roadway. We don't have that sort of thought. We don't have pole mounted signs. So you think of like old 76 gas or things like Texaco or things like that. We would never do. Or exposed neon. I mean, I could give you a whole list of things, and some of these things are listed in the prohibited section, but it really is tailored to be tailored because I don't have a good recipe book. Everyone has to make their own recipe. Did that help?
I think we should just remove maximums and minimums for signs?
Commissioner O'Connor, just to clarify, from our code, because the CSP covers it, or are you stating that anyone can have any amount of signage?
Well, so for example, if someone put a CSP together,
Yes.
but they followed all the guidelines of what the city maximums were.
Mhm.
Because they're just following the rules. They're not, like, that's, you understand, like, you're using a CSP, but you're still following the guidelines that the city's asking for.
Okay, I'm not sure there's a question there.
Well, Mike, like, you have to do a CSP, so why even have guidelines of what the minimum or maximums have to be?
Commissioner O'Connor, I think context has a lot to do with that as well. In the case of, as mentioned in the report, on paper, an 18-foot sign may not make sense in a lot of places. On Camelback Road, it makes sense. So it really depends on the situation. Now, if someone has that situation you're referring to, that's not, I don't know that it's our place to suggest otherwise. If our applicant tonight said, I want 17 4 feet, I'm not going to say I think 18 is better, or I'm going to say 15 is better. We've really laid it out so the CSP can be developed in accordance with the applicant's need. So if the applicant is saying, I want 17 feet 4 inches, I'll present it to you all. If no one objects to that idea, then we're not going to be in the way of that and what their needs are.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, again, I support that you guys do that, so I don't want it to seem like I don't.
Thank you. And we will look for a recommendation.
I want to make a motion.
I'll-
Do you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say, I'll make the motion, we approve the amendment to the Sun Health Comprehensive Sign Program, subject to exhibit provided.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay. And let's take a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to leave.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is zoning code text amendment, section 31, general. And Randy, would you discuss this?
Thank you. So item 3D is a conclusion to our conversation about accessory structures. This has taken a lot of turns, some unexpectedly. We've had an opportunity to talk to you all in November about this topic. We have talked to City Council twice on this subject, and now I'm bringing back Council's direction and feedback to what is being proposed for you this evening as a final version for your recommendation, as we are in a regular meeting now. Just for background benefit of our new commissioner, I'll go through what is on the books today. Excuse me as I read for a couple minutes here. Section 31, except as otherwise provided in subsections D 2 through 8 of this section, accessory structure shall be located between the rear property line and the principal building, shall be set back at least 5 feet from the rear and side property lines, at least 10 feet from the principal building. What that all tells everyone, and for your benefit, is there is a underlying belief that a structure should be 10 feet away from your neighbor's structure. Each of you gives 5 feet on your rear property lines, then that means you're 10 feet apart. You're also 10 feet away from your house. If any of these catches on fire, it does not jump to the next structure because you have a fire separation, in theory. A lot of structures aren't, they're more fireproof nowadays, and the composite materials that aren't as flammable, I should say. The irony in this is number 2. Screened accessory structures 120 square feet or less in size may have a 0-foot setback. Essentially, if it is lower than the height of the wall, you have to have a wall. This is not for view fencing. And it's less than 120 square feet. The thought is this is like something you get at Ace or Lowe's or Home Depot. I want to say all three, so I don't show favoritism. That isn't of such size that you have gasoline and oil and combustibles in there and you're going to catch everything on fire. Number 3, accessory structures with a height greater than the height of an opaque perimeter fence, a wall. I don't know why we don't say wall. Opaque perimeter fence is just so formal. But 10 feet in height or less shall be set back from property lines at least 5 feet. Accessory structures more than 10 feet in height shall be set back from property lines 5 plus 1 for every 1 foot in height above 10. This is very similar to what Rena was stating. If it is 11 feet tall, it's a 6 foot setback. 12 feet tall, it's a 7 foot setback, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, up to 15. For corner lots, accessory structures shall be set back the required side street setback distance. This is a conversation we had a little bit at length in November. A lot of our feedback and what we talked about as far as common sense and, you know, just have people enjoy their properties was, I think the feedback I took from this commission in November was, if there are situations in which an accessory structure is burdening a neighbor, not burdening the course or an alley or a street side necessarily, then it isn't impacting somebody. It's just impacting a road, a bit of grass. So I think one of the feedback I got from you all was the idea on a corner lots that if the street side setback is 25 feet, essentially all sheds have to be located next to your neighbor. Well, we're trying to avoid next to our neighbors because that's our neighbors don't want to see it. Why not the street side? I'll finish these numbers and I'll go back a little bit more on some of that conversation. Storage accessory structures used as garages and located on an alley shall be set back not less than 4 feet from the rear property line. They're not subject to step back requirements in subsection D4 of this section. Think Redondo or some of those areas between Fairway and Wigwam where we have that nice little square of alley loaded product, and like Palm and Sagebrush. Does Sagebrush have an alley or just Palm? I can't recall. But those sorts of situations, a lot of folks have garages in their backyards. You can't make a 10-foot garage unless you're going to hit your head and there's a flat roof. So that's why that step back requirement isn't there. Pitch roof is intended and people can swing their car around to get back there. Shade accessory structures other than tents may be located between the side setback line and the principal building, and when located as such shall comply with the setback requirements of principal building. We don't have these very often. Think sail panels, big triangular things with turnbuckles. Not really a thing that's done around here. Guest houses may be located in the area between the side setback line and the principal building and between the front yard setback and the principal building, and when located as such shall comply with the setback requirements for the principal building. Generally, all accessory structures are in the backyard. Guest houses may be next door to it, so long as they meet the setbacks still. 9, rear setbacks and properties with side yard view fencing shall be equal to or greater than the length of the view fence portion of the side yard wall. This is a long conversation again in November that we had. Those houses on Bird, Oro Vista, Acacia, Old Litchfield, the Peninsula, those sorts of ones. In situations where there's a view fence on either side of you, kind of like the RV conversation, however long that view fence is however long your setback is. Essentially, those that have view fencing on Bird, on Old Litchfield, on Acacia, on Oro Vista, essentially cannot have accessory structures. I think Commissioner Fix, you had mentioned something we had talked about is what if it was just posts and not walls? Then they were not really blocking the view because it's no wider than a tree trunk. I took all of this to City Council. However, only one thing came out of that. I'll finish these thoughts before I jump into that. I don't know why I keep alluding to it and not delivering. E, height, accessory structure shall not exceed the height of the principal building or 15 feet less. That's on the books today. Lot coverage. No accessory structure or combination of structures shall occupy more than 25% of the area lying between the rear of the principal building and the rear property lines, or exceed 500 square feet in area, whichever is less. No accessory structure shall cause the maximum lot applicable to the lot to be exceeded. This is another conversation we talked at length about in November. Why this sort of restriction? Why is it not 500 feet or 25% of the building? I have someone that has a 2,000 square foot backyard. Incredible size. They have a full tennis court back there. And they were very distraught and disheartened at the idea of a 500-foot max because it's a postage stamp in comparison to their backyard. These are all the things on the books today. The only thing that through all this conversation, and again, 2 hearings with City Council that is being discussed for you this evening and asked for recommendation are as follows. The definition of a screened accessory structure is being proposed to be changed as the following. An accessory structure inside a perimeter opaque fenced yard, inside a wall, with a height of 8 feet and less. So instead of no higher than the wall, the thought is to allow up to 8 feet in height, and that is still considered screened. Again, not in the technical sense of the wall, but here's how that follows. Screened accessory structures 120 square feet or less and 8 feet in height or less in size may have a 0 setback. When we brought this to council, had mentioned there's 600 accessory structures on 534 houses, and 400 of which are in some sort of violation with one of those 9 criteria. The response from mayor and council was to try to alleviate the most common infraction, but not necessarily change all the rules when there aren't people coming to us and demanding these rules to be changed, and where there isn't a neighbor conflict between 2 parties. Essentially, if there is a violation and no one's hurt by the violation, we are not going to suddenly be proactive and go after all 534 houses. That's not the intention. We'd have to hire 5 more people. What was the most common situation was people have sheds, but no one buys sheds that are 5 feet or height or less, or 6 feet and they hit their heads. They usually have a pitched roof. The most common answer in our research is if we allowed up to 8 feet in height, we think we can solve 80 to 90% of those issues with just this one change. So council supported that one change. They did not support any sort of other conversations we had about lot coverage or 500 square feet, or what to do in the golf course lots, or anything other than what I'm proposing for you this evening. So I know it's a weird conclusion and an unexpected conclusion as far as how we got here. That is what I need to present to you based on their feedback. Now, we had one resident who is facing this situation. She has requested not 8 feet, but 9 feet. Is there a magic number? There's not. It could be 6.5, it could be 7, it could be 10, it could be 9. 8 is the answer that was comfortable with City Council, and that is what we're proposing this evening. However, if it is your intention to revisit some of this, or if we've got it wrong, or you would like to continue this conversation, we will take that modified recommendation to these things to City Council again for tomorrow night. With that, I'm sure there are questions and I'd be happy to answer.
Was there a discussion as to why 8 feet? Why council discussed 8 feet?
Commissioner Conklin, it was our belief that 8 was a more common height. We've seen that in a few other cities as well, as 8 is the new minimum or maximum for that sort of thing. This applicant felt that 9 would solve even more situations. I guess just depending on if it's 6 foot clearance and then a little bit of a transom and then a pitch, they thought maybe 9 would be better. I don't think we're opposed to 9 over 8. 8 is what we brought to council and we're bringing this evening, but that can certainly be revisited.
I have a question. So
Yes.
assuming the 8 foot is like the size of a storage unit that you can buy at a big box
Mhm.
store, is 9 foot more of a living situation?
So Commissioner Fix, we do have allowances and criteria for guest house. There is not an ability to live in a shed as far as living quarters. A guest house has criteria in which must be followed. The other thing that comes into play is the idea that there'd be living space, but not egress windows, fire, a smoke detector, slab, utilities, power. I don't think one would misinterpret the other in that situation.
So I'm just curious as to the applicant, why 8 foot doesn't work, 9 does.
I don't know. We invited her here this evening to attend these meetings for tonight and tomorrow night. As she's not here. I don't have a more formal way, and I don't want to misrepresent her.
Sounds a little bit like the leaf screen.
What is the maximum height that we require, or that's our max for the city as far as a fence goes between
Yeah.
properties?
Thank you. And the vice chair, I should have mentioned that earlier. So on the books, unless you're against Litchfield or Camelback or Dysart, it is 6 feet. And so a lot of folks have less than 6 feet between neighbors. So as of today, that gets back to number 2, unless you got a deck box. I don't know if that's the term they use still, like what you think of like next to a pool where you store your, your patio cushions and your towels, that sort of stuff, and your skimmer. Unless you bought one of those sorts of sheds, I don't know that there's something you can buy at a big box today that is 4 feet tall that's practical.
I would say I'm disappointed in that. Did I hear right that the city is not going to take any of our recommendations that we made for some of the points that you brought up?
The city is a vague statement. Do you mind if I?
Oh, sorry,
Okay.
council.
So council heard all of this information, had a true discussions on these matters. And yes, as I've stated and will restate, the only thing that was supported as far as change to what is on the books today was these 2 items specifically.
Okay. Do you recall what any of the feedback was of why they did not support it, or was it just not brought up?
Commissioner O'Connor, and I need to be careful because I'm not representing them and they represent themselves. I'm trying my best to recall the conversation. However, they may have a different conclusion based on my words to you. The simplest way I think they looked at it was there isn't a problem today. Why cause such change if there isn't a situation occurring holistically? There's 2 very specific code issues that brought up this entire conversation. One of which was a shed located on the golf course and view fencing. And so that was brought up to us in 2024, in the end of 2024. And essentially staff, and we brought an intern in that spent 6 months doing this, found every single accessory structure in the city to get a very fair conclusion for that one resident to say, why are you picking on me? Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. If you're hitting me up for these sorts of changes, what's the deal with all 534 other houses or so? So we spent over a year going through all that research, going through all this conversation to bring it before you to think about all these possible variations and changes that we could do to not only address 1 or 2 situations, but more of the situations. And it wasn't concluded by city council that we should make wholesale changes that are beyond just one person having one issue.
Yeah, I think what's disappointing is that it was so, November so long ago. It's like, I don't remember exactly our conversation. I just know that there were a few items that were hot buttons for us. And, I don't know when that was brought to them, if it was the following meeting and now 5 months have gone by and you kind of don't remember or what. I don't know if anybody else agree with those.
I specifically remember because there's a situation that I'm very familiar with where an outdoor kitchen type structure was built, and now the other neighbor is looking at, I don't know, a 10-foot wall when they should be looking out onto the golf course. So I think we need that this commission and city council needs to stay ahead of that with the latest and the greatest of what's hot in landscape
Mhm.
and outdoor kitchens and televisions and all of that. I don't think that's like a right, because we don't have an HOA, we have to rely on these commissions to protect the neighbor, you know, yourself from the neighbors and vice versa of what they do.
Correct. To both of your points, to answer Commissioner O'Connor, your questions first, council does not meet in December. So I had to wait till January, before I had that first conversation. Because council often is a work study, a special, a CFD and a regular session, then an exec session, I am limited on how much of a conversation I can have in those meetings. And they're not always thrilled to hear all this sort of code talk. So I gave them as much as I could. We did additional research based on that initial feedback, presented additional feedback to them. And now that we have all of that through January, February, March, here we are in April, back to you as soon as we could, just to give that information. As far as staying ahead, I appreciate the thought. Speed of government is always thrown around as far as if there needs to be a change, we'll do the change. You know, I don't think you were on the commission yet, but I brought the content neutrality requirements of signs. We can't read sign message. That federal change was in 2015. I didn't bring that change until 2024. We were 9 years outdated on federal compliance, which is an example of being behind on things. I think, I don't know what John, Daniel, Jason, and Pam, and Larry, and everyone prior to me was doing in those 9 years, but it fell on me to do. To your example specifically on that situation, that through all this conversation, that sort of installation has been reaffirmed as illegal and will not be supported again, should someone else want to do that again, specifically on number 9. So design review board heard that item, approved that item, so it was permitted. But on 9, specifically through all this conversation and research, again, there was no excitement for city council to create a solution for that. So it is still an illegal situation that would not be supported again.
So it's rectified when the resident applies for their permits and comes through design review board, then it's, or a question for you, what happens if somebody calls and says, hey, you know, they're blocking my view of whatever, and there's nothing in your,
So we've reaffirmed it.
typically, yeah,
Yes, Commissioner Fix, we've reaffirmed in this conversation that it would not be supported.
okay.
We have had conversations where someone has come to us after the fact. I forget his name. We just saw him late last year where they were building it up and then someone drove by and said, "What's that?" And he came to us and was hurt. The only, and I don't want to put this out there, but I'll give you more information on it because it's coming up soon for a different matter. A variance can be sought to go against code regulations based on specific criteria outlined by the state. Is they did it and I want to do it is not merit enough for state law to get a variance, but they can always have their day in court essentially with the Board of Adjustment to see if they Board of Adjustment would approve an isolated instance like that. There is a cost and the time associated with that. There's notifications that have to be sent out to the neighbors. A similar situation somewhat is along the pathway, think between La Loma and Old Litchfield, the pathway that cuts between Scout Park. There's, I think, 3 people with view fencing. The rest of the people have had dogs or other instances where they don't want view fencing and to have a situation with people walking the path. So they've gone through the Board of Adjustment, received approval to do a solid wall instead. I'm not saying that a pergola with a kitchen wall and TV wall would be supported, but there is still an avenue to do it, if not because we haven't changed the code.
Sure, yeah, well, especially those lots over there, I mean, they're acre lots.
Yes.
They have half an acre that they're not even using, so.
May I ask that when we meet next, we discuss the items that were hot buttons for us to see if we want to shoot it back up to council? Is that something I can request?
Commissioner O'Connor, on accessory structures specifically?
Yes.
Okay, so again, because of the timing of this month, tonight's item is for recommendation of this change. So I would ask for a motion when we're ready. And if it's support or deny, either way, I will take that to city council and have this conversation with them tomorrow. Now, I don't know that I have, the only opportunity I would have to not do that is if you table the item.
No, I'm sorry. We can move forward on this. I'm just saying, what I'm asking after we vote on this is that the next time we meet, we just revisit those items, because I feel like they were important to this group.
Sure.
And, I don't want to just take because they said no, like,
Maybe we should table it and have a discussion.
That's,
I
it's your
mean-
discretion.
Well, I think Randy's just needing us to get through these two items, right?
So that is my ask. It is not a requirement by staff. Staff is reactive to your wishes and council's wishes. And maybe to, some of the things I keep alluding to, at some point, this entire code will be rewritten, and I will look for volunteers from this body, as well as RPG and DRV, that would like to hang out with me monthly to go through every single line of that 300-page document. Okay, just saying. Is there any more questions I can answer on this subject matter?
Can you give me an example of what you think the difference of a structure 8 feet and 9 feet would be? Do you have any
Commissioner Fix, at your property line, your neighbor would have an 8-foot shed, as an example, and would be permitted to have that 0-foot setback. So you'd have your 6-foot wall, and you could almost maybe reach about, I don't know how tall you are, but maybe about 7 feet. And if you jumped really high, you can get to an 8-foot. I can't dunk, so it's not 10-foot for sure. How that affects you or any resident 8-foot to 9-foot, I don't really have a conclusion for you. I think that's subjective. Really, I don't think that there is a hard and fast answer if it's 8 or 9, if it really affects you 10% more or 15% more as far as that sort of change. Certainly, maybe it's what you're alluding to, if this commission wants to change this to 9 feet in height or less, staff isn't opposed to the idea. We don't have any conclusion drawn 8 is better than 9, 9 is better than 8. Any other questions?
My 2-cent comment,
Yes.
8 foot, more than likely is a shed with a slope roof.
Mhm.
Adding another foot to it may mean you'll be able to lift the whole. So now you're gonna see more of the roof coming up and over. I think it should stay by exception only. An exception only means it comes and, present your reason why you think it's justifiable, why your property that you want to make that available on is A, B, and C.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't meet the requirements because you think you have a right, you don't. That's why we have the commission. And that's why we have that power. But I think with 500 and what, 34 or 40 violations out there already, why stir up a resting bee's nest,
Mhm.
and take it over the years, onesie twosies.
So
I don't think anything has been so disinfective against what's happened in the past 10 years, 15 years. Other than, new people move in, they have their own ideas. And that's 90% of the cases. New people get on the board, they have their own ideas.
So Randy, I don't want to say recommendation, but the thoughts from council was 8 feet is that's what they felt?
Commissioner Conklin through our research, that is a conclusion that we presented to them.
Mhm.
They didn't have feelings that it should be 7 or it should be 9 or should be 8. They just went with that idea.
So like any sort of like a kit structure that you would order from one of these retailers, like we talked about, it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 8 feet. You know, for one of these kit names, you know, kit build.
Hang on, I'll clarify that a little bit further. In our research of adjacent cities, 8 feet seemed to be a very standard answer. Due to the public feedback we received, she thought 9 feet would capture more of the things, you know, that's in the parking lot of those sorts of things. We haven't verified that statement more than just very preliminary research. That this came in last week, or maybe this week, last week. So I don't have a more educated answer to think that I've made a mistake, but I need to change it to 9. It could be the right answer, I don't know.
So we have just one person just made a verbal recommendation and no formal recommendation or an amendment to it.
Yes, that's correct.
And I don't know about the rest of the commission. I just don't see much of a reason to change it away from 8 feet at this point until we have a demand for it. Or until we have someone that comes in and that variant.
Randy, can I speak to the cases?
Sure.
Okay, so on Engage LP, I received 2 submissions. Neighboring properties, the claim was 2 or both accessory structures were out of compliance. To our code now, yes, because one is 8 foot and one is 8.8 or 8 foot 8 inch. So with this proposed language, the house on the left will call 8 foot was going to be in compliance. However, the neighbor who wrote in would not be. So that's where that suggestion came from.
Is it my understanding that the 0 setback,
Yes.
or let me back that up. Because it's 8 foot high, does that mean it has to be 8 foot back, or that's now gone? That was stricken.
It was 5 and yeah, so under this new language, any structure 8 feet or less, 0 setback. It can be right in the corner of the property or right up against, you know, the neighboring wall.
So you could have a 9 foot, it just couldn't be 0 setback.
That's correct. Yeah,
Now, does that make it go to the 5?
that's also correct.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go 1, but.
No,
So if you're looking at the, sorry,
Yeah.
if you're looking at a house from the front,
Mhm.
and on the side of their house, they have an 8 foot behind their wall, they have an 8 foot storage unit. It's visually seen for 2 feet of it, yes? Because it's 8 and the wall is 6.
Yes.
And now we can, by this, we can go to 9.
we can go to 8.
But if it's changed.
If it's
then-
changed, we can
then
go to
you see-
9.
Then you see 3 foot.
Right.
Right.
And do they have to apply for, like, do they give you a schematic of what they want to do, or is that subjective?
No, let's not go there. So we only learn about people buying sheds after the fact. I've had one nice couple on Trontera that came to me and said, we're gonna buy a shed, but tell us what kind of shed we can buy. Otherwise, most people buy the shed
Yeah.
and then it may exist 5, 10, 20 years. And if no one makes a stink,
Mhm.
we're none the wiser.
Mhm.
And it's not our intention to verify this. It's not our intention to go in backyards either and measure these sorts of things either. It is purely reactive in worst case scenarios. We have found with the app now, we have some very excited folks that are very excited to have fairness across the board, and we will react accordingly. We are never going to be a proactive city where we go looking for trouble. So again, to council's point, this thing we think takes care of 80 to 90% of the issues out there with this language specifically. It's not gonna work for everyone. Probably still have mad people, probably still have those, in violation. And we were probably still unaware of the majority of the issues. But we think this helps a lot of folks.
Does this eliminate any 10-foot setback from a house?
So it does, and I didn't talk about that because that's different can of worms. I'll be brief on it, because I told her I'd be home for dinner. I'm not gonna go. I didn't. But I appreciate the conversation. I really do, because it matters to a lot of people, quite frankly. The building code is different than the zoning code. The building code is up to a 200 square foot can be 0. We presented that also to city council to say that we could go up to 200 and still have a 0 setback, and it meets building regulations. So not a violation, not a insurance claim in case of fire calamity. It's not considered a type of structure that requires building permit. We presented that, but council was not interested in that size, because you think about that, that's like a 1-car garage at that point, 20 by 10 versus 10 by 12. So either one, current or new or changed or building code, you could still be against your house. And we have a lot of folks that put their tool shed against their house. They don't want to put it at the far end of their property line, because that's where they want to keep their shovel and mow. So this, I have no opinion of where on the property is the simplest way to say that. Anywhere on the property, you find 120 square feet or less, 8 feet or less, based on proposed language.
No setback.
No setbacks, no separation, nothing. Oh,
Can you refresh my memory? I know
Yes.
back in November, when we were talking about all of this, we were discussing about doing something to potentially like grandfather in all the houses that currently have these things in place, but there was a reason why that couldn't be done. What, can you remind me what the reasoning was for that?
I'd have to think about that. And
I don't remember that topic coming up off the top of my head. We did
I think we touched on it.
say you may
grandfathering.
remember.
I don't
Remember
remember.
that? Thought that we had discussed it.
I mean, essentially everything that is grandfathered is grandfathered. I don't mean to restate that, but
Yeah.
you know, everything
I mean,
exists
I
as
just-
is.
I just kind of, I mean, it's like apparently this was a problem with, 500, 600 houses in
Yes.
Litchfield Park. Why can't we just leave everything in place as it is?
Yeah.
And yet still protect, neighbors of those who may end up moving into the community. I mean, what if someone wants to, build their own sort of mini storage thing that's like 20 feet,
Mhm.
by 5 or 6 feet wide or whatever, to park bikes or something in there.
Mhm.
And it's right along the property line. And so then this person's got a 5-foot or 6-foot fence, and then they're looking at this big, huge thing above that. I mean, I just wonder how much people will read into that and maybe take advantage of the situation, and how obtrusive it might be to
Sure.
neighbors and
Right.
things like that. And so that's why I don't really know why we can't just grandfather things in and move forward with, wording that will go into place for the future.
Yeah, so Vice Chair, as I think, Board Member Daria illustrated, everything that is may continue to be as is. We don't even need to take this step if we don't want to. This solves however many 400 houses that aren't even aware that they're in violation. It's really was an opportunity to address two people, two different cases that came before us and demanded further research. And we spent a year, and we spent significant time going through all these steps and all these hearings with you. And what has come to that is just this. Ironically, one of those two cases will not benefit from this and will still be in violation, and it is an active code case. That's neither here nor there. That was a situation between neighbors where the neighbor was not enjoying the golf course anymore and then looking in a shed. And to the point, that's a situation that needs to be resolved and wasn't supported by council to change and allow that sort of situation. So I think to your point also, this is a step we don't even need to take if we don't want to. And everyone that is blissfully unaware can remain blissfully unaware.
Unless I get a complaint.
Unless they get a complaint and we need to react.
And then they're in violation,
Yes.
and then it needs to be corrected or
Yeah,
applied in some way, shape, or
and maybe
form.
to some of the conversation, as these continue to come in, it may not just be 2 people anymore that have come to us. It may be a dozen people that come to us. And some of the conversation that we've had and conclusions we've drawn and direction we've been given, that we take to council may need to come up again to see if there needs to be more changes than just what has been supported at this time. Or no changes, yes.
May I make a motion?
Oh, sure.
I think based off of having 2 people, I think we should table this because I don't feel like it's a factor that is imperative. And I think that I kind of feel like, what's the point of our body if we don't take what we believe are important topics with accessories and bring it back to the council to say, we think these 3 are important. And so that's my motion, that we table this.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Do I have a vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay.
Okay. We'll move on in the agenda.
Next on the agenda is staff report on current events. Do we have any report?
Chair, thank you. Heritage Place will open in July. The school, the roundabout, and the library are all on track. They will move in mid-July. August 3rd is the first day of school. The roundabout will be done. Might need a little bit more paint by then. The library will be open. All this area will be emptied out. I've been working with Desert Botanical Gardens. We had a meeting with their CEO and C-suite yesterday at the Desert Botanical Gardens to see if there's interest in the remainder of the site that is not the museum, the library, or the high school and the theater. If there's a partnership opportunity, that went well, I think. No conclusion drawn, but a good introduction meeting with their team. So that was very exciting. It is budget season as we get ready for July 1st, and it's an election year. And Litchfield Square continues to develop. And if you see anything or need help, do download the app. It's been very useful for a number of things, not just complaints, but also dead trees, bollards in the flex tubes missing from Litchfield Square, water leaks. So any sort of things like that you can find online. And that concludes my report.
Any commissioners have any updates on current events? Okay. So we have a motion to adjourn. Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Anyone opposed? I conclude the meeting.
Good job.
Well done.
Randy, what's the app now?
Engage LP.
Got it.